anxiety, inspiration, numbness. Feeling the body, the breath, noticing the mood, hearing the sound of silence. Here it all is, the array of our experience, here and now. And so much of the practice is bringing our attention to this simple, immediate, present quality of sight, sound, smell, taste and touch, form, feeling, perceptions, mental formations, consciousness. Just this. And simply to reflect. It's this way. It is thus, such, ta-ta-ta. There is this quality of suchness. It's simply this way. It's thus. We don't really need to add any more adjectives than that. Just to reflect. It's like this. Tiredness is like this. Inspiration is like this. Feeling warm, feeling cool. It's like this. Just this simple recognition of the present experience. That's enough to establish mindfulness, to establish clarity and wisdom. This is the quality that integrates all our experience. Even the feelings of things being painful or wrong, broken, not working, not right. That simple recognition of this is the feeling of not rightness. This is the feeling of something being not fixable, something not working. Right there in this simple apprehension, this simple receiving of the felt pattern of that experience, right there, in a deeper way, it's fixed, it's whole. To reflect, this is a feeling of forgetting the words of the chanting. Not perfect. Feels like this. That's where perfection lies. This is the refuge in awareness. The Buddha refuge. This is the way things are. This is the pattern of reality. Refuge in Dhamma. Therefore there's an attunement of the heart to that. A letting go of self-view. And a harmonization of the heart with that reality. Refuge in Sangha. Oh, this is the safe place. The triple refuge, the triple gem. This is the safe place. It's always accessible to us, regardless of time, place, situation. The triple gem is our real wealth, our real security. Wisdom, reality, unselfishness. According to the schedule, this is our last full day together. The ship is moving towards the destination port. The shoreline appearing over the horizon. Another day or so, and we'll all be parting company, going our separate ways. Back to Ireland or Israel, back to Hemel Hempstead, staying here at Amaravati, a few of us. The elements, the limbs that have made up this body of our retreat, these different elements will go their separate ways, scatter to the winds.
Very popular,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Blah, blah, blah. And then I'm going to ask you to talk about it.
Yeah.
And then you can, but actually, right, Frank? Right after I ask her about the audio version of her book, I'm going to say, we have a short clip we're going to show, and that's when you put in that 1 minute clip, all right?
The mysterious agent slipped
Yep.
into
Yeah.
the
When I
alleyway of
introduce
the posh
her-
Harlow Towers condominium.
After I introduce her and I start talking
Compact
about her
gear
book,
clung to his
you
muscular
can flash
form
the first book
as he
cover,
scaled with purpose and
Roses,
dexterity
Wine, and
the
Murder,
graded
right?
ironwork of the tower's
And then
architecture.
after we're done talking about
its
the
architects unwittingly
audio,
provided
I figure we'll be
perfect
probably
handling
around the
footholds for him to reach
21,
the third
22,
floor roof.
23 mark.
Okay,
You know,
yeah.
5
From his
minutes.
backpack.
Yeah.
It
The
doesn't sound like
undercover
much.
operator
not-
took a rope
yeah.
It does.
and
Okay,
small
yeah.
grappling hook.
But it might not take
and
that long
adroitly
either.
launched
No,
it
but-
before
Which is
Bailey.
fine because it leaves it
Just
for
go-
my
yeah.
upcoming book.
Right.
With the
Yeah.
And
ability
then we're
of a
going to go to your
mountaineer,
upcoming book.
he
Yeah.
plied
Okay.
the rope, hand over fist,
And we'll talk about
and
that because I
ascended to the
know
8th
nothing
floor
about
of the
that.
house.
So that's
Yeah.
all you.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Retrieving and packing his
you
gear.
tell us all about that.
Yeah.
And that'll take us right around, I figure, around to 27, 28. Then
After
Frank will
searching
give us
the
a
premises,
5-minute
he
warning.
had nothing more
Yeah.
to accomplish
I
at the
might
beginning
go
of the
something
party.
like this at the 5 minutes.
Making
just
his
so
way
you know.
down the stairs,
Okay.
That's 5
he grabbed
minutes
Okay.
two
left.
bottles of
Okay.
French
And,
Cabernet Sauvignon,
when it's
And
2
there's the
minutes,
clock.
slipping into the night.
So that gives me
Yes.
a sense of it,
Yep.
right?
and then when
All
it's
right.
when he gets when he
Yeah.
walks out with the 2-minute warning,
Okay.
that's when I try to wrap everything up.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
Alrighty.
So
Good.
So when you mention for book covers, when you mention the first book is when I show this cover,
right.
Yes.
and then is the audio book.
Not the audiobook is this cover. The audiobook is this. You don't have to show the cover.
No, I
Be-
know.
and
No,
then-
the audio. Then do the audio clip when I say
yeah.
right. The third one is after the audio clip. After we talk about the audio book, then I'm going to say, now you have a new book. I heard you're coming out with a new. Then
Right.
you
So
put
this
that
book,
one up.
The audio clip and the new book.
Got
Right.
it.
And you want this cover up when you talk about.
When I start talking about her, like when I first start talking about her, when I mention the book, when I say introduce the book, Roses, Wine, and Murder in the City of Steeples,
Okay. I'll put
then
that up.
put the flash up.
And then I put it up once in a while. I mean, if you start
Sure.
Yeah,
about
yeah,
the book,
Sure.
yeah. You, Frank, you,
Yeah.
you run with it, babe.
And I figured I don't need to do a reading unless we feel like we need to fill in some time, but I wasn't going to plan on
You
it.
know what? I wouldn't
I don't-
because I think that
I don't
we're
want
going
to. I don't
yeah,
need to.
yeah,
so
'cause
I'm good with that.
Yeah, because I think
it's
we're
more
gonna,
fun to talk.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
I think we'll have.
Yeah.
Believe me, we'll. Hopefully, we'll.
Hopefully.
We'll keep it. Right
But
on.
if for some reason we start hesitating or whatever, he can stop that in his video editing or not.
yeah, but we don't.
We try
we-
not to.
Yeah, no, he. You know what I mean? Because that's.
Okay,
Yeah,
you
he
don't
doesn't edit
edit.
these.
Okay.
He just.
It's a live show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Make believe it's
It
live.
take about 3 hours to take out little pieces.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
I have a
it's-
friend that
it's-
does
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Because I can't just use it, this file, I have to convert it to another file.
No problem. We'll do our best.
Yeah. And
I
then
hope.
Watch the potty mouth.
Oh, potty mouth. No potty. Oh,
No, no potty mouth.
no. He said it was fine.
Exactly.
Okay.
The county lights way to the suite, but basically the camera, the sound should have a light.
And welcome to Books and Beyond, the show where we hope to help people personify their aspirations. First of all, I want to say Merry Christmas to everybody out there. It's going to be a different Christmas this year. Everything's different, so we don't need to beat that horse anymore today. But I do want to say it's really great to be back in the studio. We've been doing a lot of Zoom meetings and stuff like that, but nothing like being in the studio. I just love it. I want to give a shout out to my friends in CAPA, the Connecticut Authors and Publishers Association. They are a great bunch of people. Anything to do with the written word, writers, illustrators, publishers, agents. We get together once a month. We've been doing Zoom meetings. There will be no December meeting, but January will be starting up again. If you go to the Southeastern Connecticut Authors and Publishers Association page on Facebook, you can usually find the link. Love to see you. Please join in. I think if you are aspiring to write or do anything with the written word, it's a great organization, and I really push people to try to check us out. In that vein, today I have a guest, James Rourke. James, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jimmy. Appreciate it.
James is a teacher at NFA and an author of a book, Out of the Basement. But first, tell us a little about yourself.
Oh, I've been teaching at NFA now for 25 years. And like you were saying earlier on, now I'm in a very unusual teaching year, navigating the COVID waters, if you will,
Right.
throughout the school year. I have 4 children whose ages run from 24 down to 12.
Ooh.
Yeah, and a grandson who's 2. So
You got the range.
yeah, I'm busy.
Yeah.
But I love it. It's
Yeah.
great being a father, and it's a fantastic ride being a grandfather.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Great. And you've been teaching at NFA for like 25 years, you said.
Yep, 25 years. I've been in the history department, social studies department all that time. And this year I am teaching a course in psychology, U.S. history, and a course called P3, which I actually created. P3 is philosophy, psychology, and pop culture. And we try to use pop culture to examine and make some sense out of psychological and philosophic theory.
Oh.
Yeah.
So do you use, in pop culture, you mean movies?
I use Daredevil today from Netflix.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep, we use
All right.
Daredevil to just introduce the idea of human nature. I know you're a fan. You've seen the Daredevil show?
Oh, yes, I am. Yep.
So when Frank Castle, the Punisher's on it,
Yeah.
and he has a view of what people are, and Matt Murdock has a view of what people are, and just how that idea of how you view human beings can dictate how you act.
Right.
And so we just use that as just a little touchboard, because we're going to be going into human nature after the.
Well, that's kind of cool. I mean, it's not so dry. When you're reading a book about psychology or something, it seems kind of dry to a layman, to a person that's not.
You're trying to get people excited by ideas,
Right.
And I get excited by ideas, and I just want to help the students have that vibrant inner life.
And you had something called the comic book curriculum.
Yeah, and I would say actually this book, the comic book curriculum, I wrote that before I suggested the P3 class at NFA. And the comic book curriculum came about because of the idea of using comics to kind of support existing curriculum. Use comics usually in a history or an English class to help, once again, engage perhaps a somewhat disinterested reader with an idea and then move it forward. And the idea simply came from my growth as a reader. I mean, I read comics first.
Yep.
And yeah, you were a comic guy too?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can remember even in high school, they give you 1984, and you're reading it, and I'm going, okay, yeah, I can read it, it makes sense, but I'm not feeling, like you said, too much enthusiasm. But in my head, I could picture, but Dr. Doom, this is society he would make.
Right.
So even just picturing that idea of a dystopian novel, and Dr. Doom can be a bit of a dystopian type character, and it helped me get a little more invigorated about books as a kid and even a high school student. And so I wrote the comic book curriculum.
Oh, so now did you use that in your classes, or you just sort of
I use it more now that I have the P3 class, because there's a bridge there. But I also not now, but I had been teaching in a night school program for some at-risk students at NFA for quite some time. And one of the lessons that I put together in the comic book curriculum that I used with the night school kids was about the Bushido Code.
Okay.
The samurai.
Yep.
And there's a great 4-part miniseries of Wolverine that really can be used to highlight the Bushido Code. So I had these kids at night school read excerpts from the comic and look at the scenes, then read excerpts from the Bushido Code and say, how does Wolverine's behavior kind of show the Bushido? And so it just helped it, like you said, come alive a little bit for me.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. That's great. It's very interesting. I was, you had written to me that you used history, philosophy, and psychology and how it all blends together.
Yep.
And I thought that was a really, a very interesting and poignant type of a point. I always said, wow, when you think about it, it really does sort of all flow together.
Oh yeah, I couldn't fathom, like when I teach history. Obviously, there's dates and there's events, but they're all people,
Right.
And as long as there's been people, they have a psychology. There's something that drives them, and they do have certain philosophic standpoints, whether it's understood explicitly or it's just implied in their behavior. So, to me, if you're not studying history and thinking about the psychology of people and trying to get to know humanity a little bit better, you're missing part of the boat there.
You know, I think that's a great point nowadays because it seems to be there's a lot of, fist pumping, finger pointing, especially at statues, history. You know, this one was that, this one was this. He was a racist. He was a, but I don't think people sometimes really look into the entire picture. You know, what their time and their philosophy was, or what they were really trying to do. I mean, were they really as bad as we thought they were, or are they just guys like you and me caught in a position, in a different time?
One of the things that I try to teach the kids, it's something I learned back in college as a history student, is the concept of presentism, which is we're studying the past, and we got to try to, and you want to try to leave the present behind and engage your, what I call the historic imagination. So we have to engage our historic imagination, go back in time, and let those times stand without judgment from what would be their future, if you will.
Right.
And if someone's doing something that we can say is that we find questionable, don't worry about questioning it from 2020. There's probably people from that time period who are questioning it.
Right.
So find those voices.
Right.
So then you're exploring the past.
Right.
Without superimposing the present upon it,
Yep.
which is a challenge.
Yes.
That's hard to do. And
I just think I think people would maybe calm down a little bit more or understand things a little better if they really sat down and thought about it or read up on it or checked the facts and thought about things like that, because I always thought that way anyways. Not that I'm not saying anybody was right or wrong. I wasn't there,
Yeah, I got you.
But I understand that it was a different time, different place, and a different circumstance. A hungry man looks at things different than a man that's well fed, and that's always a big factor. How did you go from this to wanting to write a book?
Well, obviously with a class like P3, clearly I love stories. So I'm using those movies, those TV shows, to teach philosophy and psychology, and even the idea of engaging the historic imagination, and so all of these. There's a lot of juice there in my classroom. Let's
Right.
say there's a lot of juice in there, and it's always been there for me, and. Just a brief sidebar, I guess. I have a book that's no longer available called The Eternal Struggle. And The Eternal Struggle was a book that came out years ago. And basically, it's a combination of Dante's Inferno meets Lord of the Rings. Okay. It's a fantasy adventure novel through the afterlife.
Okay.
And I had given the freshmen, this is back when I taught freshmen, so this is almost like 18, 19 years ago. And I had given them a little project where either they can do a little Dante's Inferno type of writing, we're studying the Renaissance, and they could either create a story. You can put people in hell, but you got to show historically why they're there. Or if you don't feel comfortable with that, let's make a history hall of shame, and we can do that. So just to let them do something. And one kid was really frustrated, came after class, after school for help. And I'm trying to help her out. And she takes her notebook and she smacks it on my desk and goes, "If you think this project's so easy, you write it." And I went, "Oh, I'll write it." That's awesome. Hey, thanks. See you later. You got to leave now. I didn't realize you were here to help me.
Yeah.
And so, so actually that's what led to the genesis of that book. And so that idea of the energy in the classroom, creating ideas in myself for something to write is not new to me. Let's put it that way.
Right.
And with this Out of the Basement, for example, I've always liked stories. I mean, these are the old classic stories, and they're the movies nowadays. It's a 4,000-year story, really, where you have suffering, you have striving and struggle, and then hopefully you have overcoming. And that's such an important story to me, that framework. And so Out of the Basement is a story of suffering, striving and struggle, and overcoming. And I just wanted to write that type of story. So, and that's what came about, was Out of the Basement.
So tell me a little bit about Out of the Basement. So
with the idea of the suffering, the main character is a Michael Tanner. And Michael has suffered trauma as a child. And so he's an adult, and his life has opportunities coming his way. You know, he has the kids, he has the wife, he has the successful career. So he's, from the outside eyes, he would look like someone he's done well. But there's other things he would like to accomplish, but the trauma of his youth has created anchors in his life. And he can only go as far as that anchor will let him go. So part of the story of Out of the Basement is Michael going on the inner journey, which goes to my psychology classes, on the inner journey to heal some of that trauma so he can more fully enjoy his life as a complete human being, not held back unnecessarily by fears and
Nice.
anxieties.
is that what you want people to take out of your book? Is that how it?
I would say so. That I hope it's like the back tag of the cover is find hope in the darkness, and the idea that hope's always there. This goes to Lord of the Rings and that
Yeah.
great scene in the film where Samwise gives the speech.
Yeah.
Yeah, about the new day will dawn.
Right. Yeah.
And so I do believe that, and I don't think you get out of the darkness, if you will, without going into it. You got to go in there and try to find a root cause of suffering. Because if you can find that root cause, now you can heal.
Right.
And so, yeah, definitely the idea of that. It is, however, and I love the fact I had two particular reviewers who reviewed the book, great reviews, but I really liked a line they both kind of shared, which was, you don't have to experience Michael's trauma to get this, because everyone has their own pain.
Right.
Everyone's got that inner world where something's not aligned right.
Right.
So even though his story is about a particular form of trauma, the idea of suffering in your head, in your heart, in your soul is kind of universal. And so I do like to think it can have a universal appeal in that regard for people.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to checking it out after. I always wait till after the show before I read people's books. That way, I want you to tell me about your book. Now, I gotta say, I admire the fact that, especially being a teacher, that you took the time, and because I know the work that goes into writing. I mean, writing, people don't realize it's such a difference. But so many people come to me and they say, "Oh, how did you write a book?" Or I want to write a book, and I always tell them the same thing. Well, you have to sit down and you have to write it. Yeah. That's all you have to do. You have to sit down in front of your keyboard, your typewriter, your computer, your laptop, and you just got to pound away until you come up with something that you like.
I've told people, depending on how I want to word it, sometimes I say you have to carve out time, and other times I'll say you have to fight for time.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to make yourself sit in that chair.
Yep.
To type, or and there's just small differences in terms of I can sit and think about characters. I'm working on a book right now, so I got characters bouncing around my head. They're talking to me a little bit, and so